If you are just learning and getting familiar with the names of the notes on the fretboard, and in addition to learning the fingerings of the scales, you need to learn what the notes are that are under your fingers at a given point. If you don't know that information, you should definitely be saying the note name out loud every time you play a note on the fretboard. Whether it's a melody that you're learning or a scale pattern from this series, whatever it might be, what you need is just time dedicated to relating the name of the note in your mind to its location on the fretboard. And you can do that by saying it out loud and having to think about it every single time you play that note. But another great way, in addition to maybe writing out your own fretboard charts, diagrams, learning and thinking your way through the chromatic scale. Okay, this note would be X, Y, Z, and you figure that out and you work your way through it. That's great practice too. I see a lot of folks talk about different boxes that include certain note names. Like if you learn the 5th fret, that is C, F, A, D, all natural notes. And if you go up to the 7th fret, once again, it's all natural notes and it's D, G, B, E. Those are like pivot points where you can have some references along the way as you fill in the blanks and learn the names of the notes on the fretboard. But what I want to share in this video is an exercise that you can do quickly to practice figuring out all of the locations for one note on the fretboard and everywhere that you can play it. Because the challenge of learning the fretboard is not necessarily figuring out the chromatic scale, it's actually identifying where the chromatic scale overlaps, which sends certain notes to certain locations, and they can exist in multiple places on the fretboard. That is the complexity. So I have a metronome here, and what we're gonna do with this is set it to a slow pace. I've got it set on 60 BPM, and use this as a reference and a push, a challenge to get to finding the note locations for a given note that we want to learn. And what you would do is maybe every day for, over the course of 2 weeks, you choose a different note from the 12-note chromatic scale. You can write this down on a piece of paper, tear it into pieces, put it in a hat. You draw one out, that's the one you do for the day. And by working through that, you're gonna end up doing all of the notes. Instead of doing G 5 times and F 3 times and C 10 times, you'll end up with an even look at all of the notes because you need to know where all of them are. Okay, so at 60 BPMs, this is probably still gonna be too fast if you're just getting this figured out, but because I know where the notes are, I can demonstrate it at this pace and then we can slow it down. So for instance, if I want to find all of the G notes, what I can do is I can think, okay, so there's an open G string and then there's the octave 12th fret. Those are the easy ones. And then where's the G on the C string? Well, it's on the 7th fret, okay? And then on the E string, there's the G on the 3rd fret. And if I have enough frets, there's also a high one up here on the 15th fret, and then G on the A string is the 10th fret. All the same note, sometimes different pitches in different octaves, but all in different locations. And what I'm gonna try and do is play one of those per click. So it's gonna be kind of fast. So. And what the metronome is doing is it's forcing me to remember quickly where all of those notes were and to refresh. And so by having the little bit of push, the little bit of wind at your back so you're like, I gotta get to the note, that's really helpful, I've found, for learning to really reinforce where the note name is, as opposed to just like, I'm gonna find all of the G's and here's one and here's one and thinking about it a whole lot. You wanna be as snappy as possible. You wanna challenge yourself. And maybe 60 is too fast. So you go to a slower tempo, maybe 40. Right, and this is pretty achievable. And then you do that for each note. So maybe on a different day, or maybe you do several different notes on the same day. I would try and make them so they're not next door neighbors, because if I go from G and then I learn G sharp, they're very closely related. What I want to do is train my brain to reference obscure locations. So I just know exactly what is happening in a given spot. And that's why jumping across the fretboard from open string to high fret and moving your hand physically between those same notes, it sort of reinforces that Rolodex referencing in your mind in that way. But also, if instead of going from G to G sharp, where I would just be one fret away from where I was before on all of those same G notes, what I might do is choose a note that's a ways away from G. So maybe I'm going to look for all of the C sharps, just for instance. So let's try that. I'll do it at 40. And this is a lot slower. But I have time to think. And before I get started, I'm kind of indexing where they're all going to be. Ready, go. Here we go. And then you would pick another note, something that's further away from the C sharp. Maybe I'm going to go to E now. E is an elephant. And of course, once it's easy at a certain pace, you can go faster. So here would be 50 BPM on the E note. Ready, here we go. There's the octave. And what I would try and do, this is fairly easy for me. What I would try and do is find a tempo where I'm having to struggle and think, oh boy, it's going really fast, and to feel a little bit rushed. You want to go slow enough that you can get them all right as much as possible, but go fast enough that you are challenged. And work your way through all 12 notes. Try them all, do them all once before you go back to the beginning again and you do any twice. But even if you spend one cycle through, which should take you 30 seconds at best, you run through that at the start of your practice session for a couple of months, you're going to start to get really familiar with where those notes live, not from a pattern where you are working through like a scale, which kind of lends everything in order relative to the next note, but by playing with this exercise, you're forced to jump straight to the note that you're searching for. So I really like this one. Give it a try. Let me know what you think. And if you haven't, please go to liveukulele.com/register to sign up for the Fretboard Mastery mini series, as I am calling this. You'll get access to the tabs, and there'll be a link for the scale diagrams and also a practice routine. So you can kind of see how I would lay this out and break it up into manageable chunks to slowly work your way towards having a good understanding of all of this material. So the videos are available for free to everybody on YouTube, but if you want to get the downloads, go register. It's free. And I'll be in touch and I'll see you over there. Thanks.